Cullen live in 1 minute. Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Email your questions and comments to lynn at pghcitypaper.com.
Why, hello there. How you doing? This is the dulcet tones of Lynn Cullen, an acquired taste, to be sure. And it is the 8th day of the 12th month of the 2014 year, at least by whatever standards we employ. Whatever. Anyway, so, blah, blah, blah. Monday. I'm sorry. It's Monday, and it's gray again. That's it. We got 1 day of sun. That was it. 1 day is all you're getting. And admittedly, we're not at the leaden gray stage today, but, oh, God. I was just telling Celine, I think I do have seasonal affective disorder. I just feel myself sort of closing down psychologically, and everything becomes like a burden. The idea that I have to go out and do something, like get food, is almost more than I can bear. I don't know. Oh, man. Oh. And I have does anybody in the audience know anything about fish? I don't mean about eating fish. I mean about fish in a pond, and then fish. Does anybody? Because I think I've done something terrible. Well, not terrible, but I have a little pond. A pond. I'm sorry. I have a little pond in my backyard, and I have had all manner of fish in it. When first I had the pond put in, some friends brought these 3 koi, I guess, in and threw them in one day. They were like this big. Well, this big. They kept growing and growing. I remember joking about, all right, so, obviously, at some point, how big can a koi get? This is a little pond. Pretty soon they could hardly move. The 3 of them are in there. This is after 2 or 3 years. They were so big, and eventually had to be removed. Oh, God, this brings us such terrible images. Oh, I was removing them to save them, but they didn't know that. And so the one put up such a struggle when that net came for him. Such a struggle. And one of his fins was ripped off. Oh. But all 3 were safely transported to North Hills Water Garden something place. And there they learned to frolic in this huge, huge pond with lots of other fish. And I even went to visit them a few times, and I would see the guy with the one fin. And he was getting around okay. Okay, so those are my first fish, and they were not right for that pond. They outgrew it. And so the second fish that took up residence, I was assured, would not get bigger than this. And pretty much they did not. Why am I telling you this story? Well, anyway, just to cut to the chase because this is dull. Those fish lasted about 3 years. And you understand these fish, they hibernate all winter, which blew me away. I mean, those big guys did, and then the smaller guys did, so that late October, early November, they just sort of go down to the bottom and conk out for 6 months. And everyone, on a warm winter day, you can look in and you can see them sort of moving around a little bit. Now, the thing is you keep a little heater in the pond so that as they're sleeping down at the bottom in the winter, that there is an air hole that is kept open so that ice does not totally form over the top, so that gases can escape and the little fish will be frisky and raring to go in the spring. Okay? So last winter, this horrible winter we had, the heater was not up to the task. The pond froze over. And sure enough, in the spring, there were 3 dead fish. Well, in some ways, I was actually relieved. Here's why. Because in the interim, I had gone to the shelter and gotten 2 cats. And I now had cats and fish. Now, this can be a little bit of a difficult thing. And, of course, the cats love nothing better than to go over to the pond and try to kill the fish. So I had to figure out what to do and installed a kind of net over the pond, thus protecting the fish and frustrating the hell out of the cats. And that worked. But then the fish froze. So I was thinking, I'm not putting fish back in because then I got to put that net, and the net is ugly and takes away from the ambiance, the whole idea of the pond in the first place, and that I don't have to worry about the fish getting killed. And so, no, I'm not. But then I noticed, is anybody listening to this? And why would you, if you are? So then I noticed that a pond without fish just doesn't have the color and life and movement that are required for a pond to do what we want a pond to do, which is provide a beautiful and natural distraction and a glimmer, a glimpse of another world, right? All of that. It's good for us. It's contemplative. It creates probably lower heart rates and blood pressure. And I found that looking at my pond just wasn't cutting it. But why would I want to put fish in when I have these goddamn cats? So you know what I did? I went to the pet store and I said, those little goldfish there, the feeder fish, the guy said. I said, right, the feeder fish. What does that mean? That means that people buy those fish to feed to other fish. They're meant merely as food. And I looked at this tank full of these cute little goldfish swimming around, and I thought, oh my God, you're all doomed. Doomed! So I thought, well, hell, if they're going to get eaten anyway, why don't I get a whole mess of these guys, throw them in the pond, there's my color, there's my life, and the cats can have at them. So I did. And six of 10 have survived the entire summer. They're now not little fish. They, too, are twice as big and fat. And so when the winter came, I thought, oh dear, I wonder if they know to hibernate. Well, here's what I wanted to ask you. All fish don't hibernate, right? Because I got to tell you, these 6 little scrappy guys that were supposed to be dead long ago, here's what they're doing. They ain't sleeping. They ain't down at the bottom. They are huddled. Oh! They are huddled around the heater that's trying to keep... I have to take them in? Oh, dear God, I don't wanna. But I don't want them to... What am I supposed to do? See? No good deed goes unpunished. I don't know. I mean, here I am trying to work with the balance of nature, fish, cats, this stuff, blah. I felt like a savior of these little gold fish. I'll save you from the big bad fish. I shall save you. And I took them home, and I did, and they're too fast for my cats. My cats, And one of the cats fell in. What a rut. Totally fell in the pond. And that cat does not hunt the fish anymore at all. It's totally traumatized by the experience. So, I mean, I love these little survivors, but I don't think I want to... Okay, never mind. I was not intending to tell you any of that. Oh, some of you have... Lynn, my pond fish never get much larger than 6 inches. Well, Ansel, you're not tending to them like I tend to mine. The blue heron, which terrorizes ponds in our neighborhood, makes sure my fish never get too big. So they get eaten. Yeah, I've had some of my guys eaten, but I don't know by what. Cats, hawks, raccoons. It's a rough world out there, I'll tell you. But anyway, here's 6 little survivors, and they're all huddled around that heater. What am I supposed to do? And don't tell me to bring them in, because then I gotta... Go ahead, caller. Caller, hello.
Hey, it must be awful to be plagued by such first world problems.
Oh.
So listen, here's the deal. All right. First of all, you should never take in a pet that you have to pay for.
I agree.
That means it's a commodity, and animals should not be commodities in that way.
Do you know how much 10-feeder fish cost? It was like $2.
That's not the point, though. The point is that those are being bred. The only reason for those being alive is so that someone can sell them.
Well, it's not their fault.
Be fed to... No, but it's like... that's why I was happy when you said you had rescued 2 cats. Because...
Yes.
They're not being bred for someone. You're going and rescuing them. They need a home. They already exist, so you are doing a good deed in that sense. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yes, but these fish already existed, albeit in a pet store.
Yeah, but there's somebody. So anyway, that's my first thing.
Okay, so let them die is what you're saying.
No. I have to go into work tomorrow. For a meeting. I work off-site, but I'm a contract carpenter for Phipps Conservatory. And I don't know if you're familiar with Phipps, but they have many
ponds.
Many fish.
Yes.
And I will see if they'll take your fish from you.
Really?
Yeah. I'll ask them. I'll see what kind they have, and I'll describe yours. I think I have a pretty good idea of what
they're little feeder fish. They were no bigger than,
well, they have. I don't know if you've ever been behind the scenes at Phipps, but down in kind of where they stage everything, which is down in basically the basement, they have a room where they have a giant. I don't want to call it an aquarium because it's not for. It's much more utilitarian than that, but it's a tank where they raise fish to put upstairs in their pond.
Hmm.
And I will see what if they can help you out. I'll see if
that's
they're
very
willing to take it.
very.
You may have to get them there.
Okay.
But I'll see what they say. I see you making faces on the computer.
What?
Your video link is working. By the way,
it is working.
Yeah. So that's the deal. Don't buy animals, whether they're
I agree, and I never had those. That's the first animal I bought.
Yeah. I mean, no matter how
fish.
small their central nervous system is, you still shouldn't be in the business of commoditizing animals, I guess. Unless you're going to eat them, and then that's a whole other case. So. All right.
All right. Don't trouble my head with these ethical issues. Goodbye.
Bye.
I can't think clearly about anything he said. But I think, right, whatever. I don't know what to do. But see, yes, it's a first world problem. Admittedly, I'm worrying about the fucking fish. William writes, I'm finding long walks therapeutic this winter. I have to gather my courage to do it, but once I get on with it, I'm very pleased. I keep in mind that I would infinitely rather be able to walk as long and as far as I want than ever to lose that freedom, and that keeps me encouraged. You're a good man, William. And I know you're right, and that is what I should do. And my 92-year-old mother walks every day in the winter, unless there's ice. And she walks in Wisconsin. So if it's like 10 degrees, that doesn't stop her. You just dress warmly and go on out. And I just don't have her, I don't know, what is that? Discipline and resolve. But you're right, and that's exactly what I should be doing. And that would help. Exercise in general helps the mood. There's no doubt about that. But taking exercise and bringing it outside so you're getting some of the benefit of, nature and all that is a good idea. You're absolutely right. I thank you very much. Okay. Where were we? So did you see this about the mayor? The mayor. Our mayor, by the way, he's very well thought of all over the place. He's getting to be hot commodity. I read in the paper today that he was the only mayor in the whole country that got invited to this exclusive thing that the Google guys do down in wherever the high and mighty meet once a year. And he was the only one, mayor, that was asked to join that crowd of movers and shakers. Also, did you see that this is in like 2 weeks? The mayor's going to be on television, on CBS, on one of their reality shows. Is that generally known? See, I mean, it probably is because I don't watch local TV news much at all, if at all. And it seems like the kind of story they would have been all over. So if you watch TV news, you probably know this. But he's going to be on Undercover Boss. What's that? Well, it's one of these stupid reality shows. It's one of these shows where the boss, the CEO, let's say, of a business, goes in and acts like a regular anonymous worker and works with the people who work for him. And then he's unveiled, or she's unveiled at the end as actually their CEO. And of course, that turns out to be really good for some of the people he's worked with, and probably not so good for some of the others. Whatever. But how the hell could that work? Since even the dim-wittiest city worker would have to know what the mayor looks like, would recognize him. How do you make Bill Peduto all of a sudden come and work with city employees and not have the city and camera crews around? How do you do that? Well, apparently they did. This got filmed in the fall. And according to the Post-Gazette, this is the show's 6th season. And in order for this to work with the mayor, I guess they disguised him. So he did not appear to be himself while he was doing that. And he worked as a refuse worker. So the mayor might have picked up your garbage. But he did some other jobs too. He was a carpenter for a little while. And he also worked in the forestry division. We have a forestry division in the city? That's cool. And so just so you know, the mayor was on Undercover Boss. And while I've never seen that show, I'm going to watch that one. So that's the 21st of December. That's a Sunday, 8 p.m. Be there or be square. Oh my God! Did you see this story? I couldn't believe it. It was in the Wall Street Journal. I didn't see it anywhere else. And I can't believe it hasn't received more coverage. And this is something that, like, really people in Pittsburgh will be very upset to hear. A gas leak sickened 19 people at a Furries convention in Illinois. There were furries in costume, gasping for breath, being treated by paramedics. And, you know, we've come to love the furries here, so you can only imagine how awful that was. And you can only imagine the scene in the hospital ER as these creatures began coming in to the ER, suffering from exposure to chlorine gas. And here's the thing. The cops think that this was an intentional event, that it was, in fact, a crime, that the chlorine gas was left in a stairwell to do exactly what it did, which is sicken all those folks and in their little costumes. And this was at one of the hotels at O'Hare Airport. And I thought, well, wait a minute. I thought the furries always convened here in the summer, which always struck me as odd. They're always here in the hottest part of the summer. And they're walking around downtown in these big, you know, when you can hardly breathe, it's so hot, and they're walking around in these costumes. But it turns out, as I read a little bit more closely, that this was a convention of the Midwest furries. And I think the one we have here is the national. So I still think we're tops in the furry world. But gee whiz, an attack on the furries, police think. Anybody out there want to talk about news? God, I hope not. Oh, here's the Pope. I'm a big fan of this guy. You know that. Really like him. He did an interview with a newspaper in Argentina, and he said he thought it was good that his pontificate, is that right? That his papacy had created tension in the Catholic world. And tension and discussion. And he says it is a good sign. There isn't just hidden mumbling of disagreement. So he was saying, I welcome those who are coming and freaking out at things that we're discussing, like letting divorced people take communion, which the Pope thinks should be done, or letting gay Catholics, all that kind of stuff. He noted that divorced and remarried Catholics are currently barred from activities such as giving readings at Mass or becoming godparents. And the Pope said this: "It seems they are excommunicated de facto. We should open the doors a little bit more. Why can't they be godparents?" This is such a weird Pope. He asked questions like, well, why can't they be godparents when he could just, right? Couldn't he? Well, I don't know. He openly acknowledged the serious discomfort his papacy has caused amongst conservatives. And he said, resistance is now evident, and that's a good sign, he says. It's healthy to get things out in the open. So this Pope is saying, come on, bring it on. Come on, let's wrestle with these ideas. Let's wrestle with these ideas, and I love him for that. And get this. How do you not love this guy? Listen to this. Pope Francis, who turns 78 next week, on the 17th, it's not quite next week, has never taken a holiday. What is with me? Excuse me. Him. He usually, he usually rises at 4:30 every morning and maintains an intense schedule. He observed his birthday last year by sharing his celebration with 3 homeless men, along with his staff, in the rooming house he lives in. How don't you like this guy? Walking the walk. Pope Benedict, remember him? He's still around. I think he's living in grandeur somewhere in the Vatican. The Pope who's doing the work is living in a rooming house and is a simple man. He said he's going to celebrate his birthday again with just ordinary people and his staff, and he says, it will just be another day to me, pretty much like any other. I like him. So I think I'm going to take a break. If only to try to work on my throat a little bit. We'll be back.
Dave, what are you doing?
Just sending a gift to Dave 2037.
Who?
Me in the future. I save a little money from every paycheck for Dave 2037 so he can buy anti-gravity boots or a hologram Doberman. What are you getting Steve 2037?
Steve 2037 will be just fine.
Well, okay, but don't expect to borrow my anti-gravity boots.
Save something for the future. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free ways to save, go to feedthepig.org. That's feedthepig.org.
This message brought to you by the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants and the Ad Council.
Download the popular CP Haps app and find out what's going on in Pittsburgh for the holidays. It's the free and fun app that puts the most popular events at your fingertips. Text events to 77948 to download now and register to win tickets to Trans-Siberian Orchestra and dinner to Sonoma. The CP Haps app, brought to you by Pittsburgh City Paper.
Kids have the craziest ideas about food. Where do they get this stuff? Like eating Brussels sprouts helps you hit home runs. And eating carrots gives you X-ray vision. It's nuts. And I honestly have no idea where my daughter got this notion that broccoli is the official food of professional ballerinas. kids. The only reason my 4-year-old loves cantaloupe is because he's convinced it comes from the moon.
One small step for man, lots of potassium for mankind.
And the other day when my oldest came up to me and said, Mom, will eating peas and carrots really help me pull off a fakey frontside ollie with a twist? I look him in the eye and say, it can't hurt, honey. It can't hurt.
Moms everywhere are finding creative ways to help their kids eat 5 servings of fruit and vegetables a day. Get ideas, get involved, get going at letsmove.gov. Brought to you by the USDA, HHS, and the Ad Council.
For the millions living with COPD, breathing becomes a real struggle. COPD stands for chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, but you may have heard of it as chronic bronchitis or emphysema. Over time, it makes it harder and harder to breathe until you feel like you're breathing through a straw. COPD is the 4th leading cause of death in the U.S. It kills 1 person every 4 minutes, and it took my grandmother. An estimated 24 million Americans are affected, but as many as half of them don't even know it. It's a race against time to spread the word about this serious disease. If you're over 35 and have ever smoked, you could be at risk. The good news is, there are steps you can take to improve your symptoms. I'm Danica Patrick, and I drive for COPD. Take action today to breathe better tomorrow. Join the movement at driveforcopd.com, take our screening questionnaire today, and talk to your doctor.
You're listening to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Once again, here's Lynn Cullen.
William writes, today on Morning Joe, I can't watch that show anymore. I haven't watched it in a million years. I just can't stand that crowd anymore. Never liked Mika. Granted, I have something against her father, but I still never liked her anyway. And Joe, a whole bunch of them, yuck. Apparently their ratings are tanking too. Today on Morning Joe, I'm sorry, William writes, Mika Brzezinski tried to report the headline on the gas out leak at the furry convention. But when footage of the furries played, she freaked out, burying her head in her hands before walking right off the set with no explanation. That's one of the reasons I don't like her. I mean, why am I not surprised about that? You see, here in Pittsburgh, we know furries, and we know them to be perfectly good people. She was reacting, as if they were like, what? It was okay, they were gassed! I don't know. I don't like her. Chris wants to know how my blood pressure is. Well, I don't know. Chris is asking because she watched 4802 Friday night. That was that QED show. And she says, I thought you were going to blow a blood vessel in your debate with Bill Green. Yeah, I almost did. She said it was a good show. I don't know. When I start screaming, I've lost the... it's just like... I couldn't believe what he was saying about... We did the whole show on the street protests around the Eric Garner murder. And it's just amazing. I mean, my sense is that he represents an awful lot of people who think the same way. My sense was frightened by people in the streets. And frightened of change that the people in the street might be a precursor to. I can only hope. But people are so different. I look at those people in the street and feel hope. He looks at those people in the street and feels fear. Totally opposite reactions. And my reaction is sincere. That is how I feel. And his reaction is sincere. That is how he feels. But it's tough when our reactions to the world are so absolutely in opposition. I don't know. And I must say, I've been waiting for some of these marches to have some of these idiots break away and cause damage. And in fact, there were incidents of that on the West Coast over the weekend. These friggin' fools in San Francisco, in, I don't know, somewhere in Oregon, I think, and in other places where they, started breaking windows and my sense is, I've been waiting for that. First of all, I've been waiting for the conspiracy-minded person that exists in us all, and just a little bit in me, said that if I were somebody who was frightened by this grassroots, organic outpouring of anger and disappointment and frustration that we were seeing in the streets, that I just fucking blanked. God, I hate that. Celine, does that ever happen to you? Seriously? No, really. You got a thought and you're, really? Mm-hmm. Okay, and she's in her 20s, so it doesn't have to mean anything, right? Jesus. What was the thought? What was the thought? It was a good one! I don't know. Maybe it'll come back to me some other time. Oh, I actually started to think, you know what? It would benefit the people who want the status quo. It would benefit them if these marches turned violent, right? And so I worry that there are people that infiltrate these things with the sole purpose of undercutting them. Could be. It's the kind of thing that, in our former history, like when we learned about Richard Nixon and the committee to re-elect the president, creep, when they engaged in what they flat out called dirty tricks. This is a kind of dirty trick, if you want to make light of it. It's possible. And then it's also possible there's just a bunch of irresponsible idiots who see marching in the street as, sort of like some people who see a football game as an opportunity to get roaring drunk and disgusting. And some people who see a protest march as an opportunity to act out. That has nothing to do with the march itself. So I hope that these young people can rein in some of these provocateurs and or idiots. And I also hope they can figure out how to funnel this energy into something that is sustainable. Because obviously you can march every night. It doesn't do anything. And after a while, people weary of the scene. What's it doing? So the next step is the hard step, to try to figure out how to take this feeling and determination and to make change happen. But I'm not alone when I look at these powerful, silent protests and peaceful protests and feel hope. And Charles Blow, writing in the New York Times today, also clearly is seeing it like I'm seeing it, and he admittedly is suggesting that he's being perhaps optimistic. Caller, go ahead. Hello, caller?
Hi.
Hi.
I think that the people who are scared of the protests and the protesters are the ones who are scared of black people.
Well, that might be too. Right. They're fearful in general of people acting up or acting out or not behaving in a certain manner and whatever. They're uptight and they're scared a lot. Yeah.
I don't know. I look at Bill Green being the Republican that he is, and the way the Republicans look at African Americans in this country and want them to continue to be, I don't know, I always feel like these Republicans want to continue to see African Americans continue to be oppressed. And it just drives me up a wall.
Well, I think they want things to be like, there's a reason they tend to live in the suburbs and away from they're afraid of the often urban America. And the fact that it is more chaotic, right? And it is more diverse. And these are the kinds of things that, frankly, they're just not comfortable with. I mean, they maybe don't realize it themselves, but generally speaking, that's true. They gravitate to their own, and that's where they're comfortable.
But there are African Americans who move to the suburbs these days. Oh, my gosh. My property values are going to go down.
Well, at some point, you can't run far enough. I don't know.
My heart bleeds. Ugh, just drives me nuts.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Bye. Roger writes, does Bill Green live in the suburbs? Actually, I think he lives farther out. I think Bill has even a ranch, a farm, a horse farm or something. He's an equestrian, and he loves horses, and I know he rides. So he lives, I don't know if he's in the county. I don't know. I don't know. And Roger writes, I help my interior designer wife at nights or weekends in her customers' homes in places like Treesdale. Where's that? Is that like out there somewhere? Treesdale. I often have to lug merchandise from the van into the house. Usually I have to ring the doorbell to get back in for every trip. They constantly lock the door. I think they're afraid some angry black man is going to break into their home in their lily white neighborhoods on a sunny Saturday afternoon. Why would you lock your doors out there? I don't know. I don't know. Some people are comfortable, it seems, living with fear, and some people can't. I'm one of those. I can't live with fear. So maybe sometimes I'm reckless in a way. Just avoid what other people would say are, well, there's a real potential threat there. And I think, yeah, but I can't live like that. I can't live like that. Last year there was a friend of mine who lives, well, just a hop, skip, and a jump away from me in the neighborhood. He was coming home from work. He takes the bus, and he was walking to his house in a very nice neighborhood of the city, and a car pulled up, and a gun was pointed at him, and he was robbed. And when I found out about that, and then found out that somebody else that had happened to, a lot of people's reaction in the neighborhood was, oh my God! Well, I just don't know if I can walk the dog anymore. What can I don't even know if I can take a walk. And I'm thinking, You always got to look at the odds to me. The odds. I do a risk assessment. The odds that you're going to, when I hear something like that, I make a point of walking out into the neighborhood. I mean, I don't know. I was saying that Charles Blow wrote a piece, a hopeful piece in the paper today about these young people in the streets. And he says one of the people's greatest strengths in a democracy is the flexing of political muscle. That's right. That's what marches are meant to do. Look at us. Hey, look at us. But you have to follow it up by then being voters and being involved in the system, because that's actually where everything happens, not in the streets. The people united shall never be defeated. That's one of the chants that marchers know. Because when you have a mass of people, it's what unions are about. When you have a mass of people, that strength, the strength of numbers, can take on the powerful who don't have the numbers, but they got power. He says this new activism we're seeing has the potential to create a new political reality. That's what exactly I feel. And that's what I was trying to say to Bill Green, who sees it as the beginning of the end of Western civilization. I see hope. He sees destruction. But Charles Blow ends his column with 3 words. That this is potentially going to change things. And then he says, eventually, I hope. This is very tempered then. It's not going to happen overnight. Do these young people know it can't happen overnight? Do they understand that it takes years and years and years of this kind of work, and it does have to get political? Like the gay rights movement, theirs was political, right? It has to be political eventually to deal with the power. And speaking of that, I've gotta say something. Oh, there's a big shocker. She has to say something. I have to say something. And this is me being fearful. What good is it? I'm asking my fellow liberals, progressives, Democrats, people who tend to be moderate to left. What good does it do us if we're going to win the presidency and lose everything else? What good? I want to know. Because the Republican Party, who I've been writing off for years as near death's door because of demographics and all this kind of stuff, the reality is, while we might have the White House, that's all we have. It's a nice thing. But, and eventually, if we have the White House long enough, we should be able to make the Supreme Court, the judiciary, better. That's true, too, because that power comes with the executive. But we do not have, nor do I see a way to, ever control the House of Representatives again, or the legislative branch. And here's where I'm really freaking. The almost dead Republican Party controls more state legislatures, has total control in I don't know what the count is now, controls both houses in their state legislatures in a ton of states, has control of one of the houses and almost control of both in another ton of states, controls the governorships of a majority of states. They have attorneys general now, overwhelmingly Republican. Let me tell you something. The closer the governmental entity gets to you, the more local it is, the more impact it has on your life. So we might have the guy at the top, but fill in everything down underneath, and incredibly, it just keeps becoming redder. I don't understand why we are not more mobilized, why we're not recognizing we've got a problem here, why we just sit on our asses and say, well, demographics, look at all those brown people coming across the border. They ain't gonna vote for a Republican. I don't know about that. Hispanics are a perfect fit for Republicans if the Republicans finally figure it out, and they will. They're Catholic. They're conservative in many ways, right? It's just that the Republicans have been, because of their fear of the other, have managed to sort of push Hispanics into the Democrats' arms on the one issue of immigration. I don't know. I think the Democrats are out to lunch. Out to lunch. And we have this assumption that Hillary's going to get to be the next president. Whoop-de-doo. She will work with a recalcitrant Republican Congress. I'm not a huge fan of Hillary Clinton's, but I mean, whatever. I don't know. It's not enough. It's not enough. And the fact that we always get the top guy, okay, so we got this black man as president. What did that do? It created a lightning rod for all these fearful, scaredy cat Americans who don't like change. It energizes them in a way. And they just continue to take more and more of state legislatures, which allows them to then gerrymander everything so that only Republicans can win in perpetuity. So there are no really elections anymore. It's all preordained. Why are we thinking that we're in such good shape? I mean, Democrats. Hillary Clinton will be every bit as much of a lightning rod as Barack Obama. I don't know. I really wonder. I do wonder. Reports of the demise of the Republican Party have been, I think, overstated, and I have been part of that, of steering people wrong in that way. I really think I have. The more I sort of keep looking at it, there was a story that was so horrific about the corruption of our political system in the New York Times yesterday that I couldn't read it. It was like 4 pages long, and I couldn't read it. I got the gist. And the gist is that the attorneys general of the states are now overwhelmingly Republican. And these Republican attorneys general have come together. And they are working hand in glove. I mean, absolutely hand in glove with corporate lobbyists. Corporate lobbyists actually write legislation and then give it to these attorneys general. When you hear that a bunch of attorneys general from a number of states are suing the White House for overreach in regard to Obamacare, the power and the money behind that is coming from those deep-pocketed corporate lobbyist types who now have an entire class of politicians who do their bidding, who put the bills they want, written by them, into the legislative hoppers, controlled by the Republicans, who then sign off on them, pass them, state after state after state after state after state. We think we got bragging rights because we got the big fish, because we get the president. That's our position, Democrats. And the Republicans settle for the littler fish. Governors, attorneys general, school boards, city councils, House of Representatives in some little state capital, and senates, Congress people and senators, and they have extraordinary power, especially given the fact that they're supposedly half dead. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. So, you know, Vanessa German, who's been a guest on this show a few times and is a friend and is an artist and a spoken word artist and a sculptor and a activist and I don't even know how you can. She's a Renaissance woman. She is a force to be reckoned with. She is something else. I just heard that her latest and newest admirer is Bill Clinton. That she was at some big event in Arkansas where I guess the people who own Walmart, the Waltons, who now have a big museum there, have bought some of her work for lots and lots of money. I have some of her work. And I didn't pay lots and lots, but that's before she became known. And Vanessa, apparently, Bill Clinton was supposed to speak at this event, and as being Bill Clinton, he was late. And so to entertain the crowd, I guess, Vanessa was just started doing some of her spoken word, started doing her performance, her poetry, and blew the place down. And Clinton comes in and catches her act and comes on stage and says, well, how am I going to, I'm supposed to follow that. So our Vanessa, everywhere you turn, she was on CBS, Morning News the other day, the Sunday, whatever that thing is. She's just hot as hell, and I'm just telling you that. And I hope, given her commitment to Homewood, Pennsylvania, and where she lives, and where she tends to so many children through her Love Front Porch art project. I mean, she's just amazing. She's in her 30s. She can do it all. And I hope her energy keeps up. That's all I can say. Because once you start making friends at the levels she's got, admirers. I don't know if they're friends. Admirers. And how do you not admire her? She's mind-blowing. Mind-blowingly talented human being. And with enough energy to, I mean, my guess is she doesn't sleep more than 3 hours a night. and smart as a whip. I'm just saying, with the kind of admirers she is collecting left and right, and it just starts to, that it's going to be interesting to see what her future holds. Minimally, I keep saying, minimally, she's got to get one of those MacArthur Genius grants, which gives them about give her about $1 million, right? I can't think of anyone who will use that money better. So, anyway, our little Vanessa. I am envious that Bill Clinton loves her. I am. I really am. But I have to deal with that myself. Okay, we're done. I'm done. I think maybe... What is all these emails? Can I quickly read them? Russ writes, exactly. I've been preaching this since President Obama's first midterm election. Why can't we keep the grassroots structure that would build us the first election? That's driving me nuts! And why wouldn't the illegal immigrants vote Republican? They're their biggest employers. Hi, Lynn. Curiously on my part, but sitting on the sidelines watching you and Bill Green spar, I hear both of you saying something similar. I just heard you say that the young protesters are going to have to figure out what to do next, and I think that is a great truth. They are going to have to figure it out. On Friday, Green jumped right to that point when he said something like, so what do they want to do now? He moved right to the point without all the emotion surrounding the protest. But no, it was his way of, so what do they do now is a way of discounting what they've already managed. It's, you can take to the streets and cause a lot of trouble and get in my way while I'm trying to drive back to my house. But what good... There was plenty of emotion on his part, believe me. Let's not forget, writes PJ, that even if Democrats wanted to do something about state and federal governing bodies, we can't. We can't do anything because until the districts are redrawn. And we can't redraw districts till we get Democrats in to the legislatures to redraw the districts, which means you can't do it. We're stuck. Checkmate. Also, he points out, there was a large number of young Hispanics elected under the Republican ticket just last month. Chuck writes, regarding your comment, what good is it to have the White House when you have nothing else? We were asleep at the wheel, and here's how the Republicans did it. First, they put a ton of money into winning the gubernatorial races. Once they had their governors in place, they threw their money behind key races in the state Congress. This is what the Koch brothers and all those deep-pocketed Republican lobbyist types and their PACs do. There is not a little teeny statewide election in any state in this country that they're not interested in. Then they redrew the districts, passed into law, of course, by their newly elected governors. The GOP learned long ago that the power is really not with the presidency, and now the Democrats need to learn that too. Unfortunately, the hard way. Ed writes, hello again, Lynn. Aren't the little fish where hope resides? You know, this is very interesting that this hour started with little fish. It did, didn't it? And now we're back. Ed says, aren't the little fish where hope resides? How are Democrats and the little fish going to get together? That's the big question. I don't know. The Democrats have lost their way, too. The whole system is corrupted. Okay, that's it. I got to go. I think tomorrow Susan may be, but she's, I think, in California, and I'm not sure what's going on. Anyway, goodbye.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com.